If you've been a dedicated follower of this podcast, then you're more than likely familiar with my commitment to addressing sensitive topics, particularly within the realm of mental health, specifically men's mental health. It's a subject that I've aimed to dive into more extensively, and I believe this episode presents a fitting opportunity to do so. Recently, I had the privilege of engaging in a thoughtful conversation with Micah and Stephanie, who shared their profound journey regarding their brother Jeffrey's tragic suicide this past summer. In our discussion, Micah and Stephanie articulated how men's mental health and intimate partner violence played pivotal roles in Jeffrey's later years, and tragically, became contributing factors to his suicide. Since this heartbreaking event, they've assumed the responsibility of not only sharing Jeffrey's narrative, but also shedding light on the critical issue of men's mental health, challenging prevailing one-sided and dismissive stereotypes. All of this is undertaken amidst the ongoing process of coping with their own grief. Jeffrey, no longer able to share his journey, is beautifully represented by his siblings, who sat within this very room and recounted his troubled life, struggles with self-esteem, the immense pressure he bore from a young age, and the love and light he sought to impart to the world. His fundamental longing was simple. Jeffrey loved, and above all, desired to be loved. In an effort to further support Micah and Stephanie's mission, links to their social pages will be provided, allowing you to follow and contribute to their cause. They remain steadfast in their commitment, and I trust that your support will aid them on this journey. This podcast has consistently served as a secure space for individuals to express their thoughts and emotions. As we navigate the profound topics discussed in this episode, I emphatically request your discretion. The content may be triggering for some. Please be advised, and thank you for your understanding.
Good times, good stuff.
I'm glad that we actually had a conversation prior to this. For those that are watching that didn't know, it was that important to me when you reached out to me, Stephanie, that I was like, listening to the story, watching the video, watching the both of you. It touched me, it triggered me. It was something where I felt compelled that I needed to talk to you guys and see you guys both before doing this. So I'm grateful that we're finally doing this. We were talking about the technical difficulties. I was devastated that this may not happen. So I'm glad that this is happening. So first and foremost, how are the both of you doing?
That's always a hard question.
Yeah.
Because we were actually just talking about this yesterday. We had one of my wife's family members, our nieces, somebody, I'm not exactly sure how we're
Family, just say family.
We'll just say family. I don't want to sound fucked up, but I was just like, somebody passed away recently, and my wife came to me and was like, I don't know how to reach out to our niece and just see how she's doing. And I immediately was like, that's a stupid fucking question.
Yeah.
And I was like, from my experience, when our brother passed away, it was like people I hadn't heard from in 20 years calling back to back and texting, what happened and how are you feeling and what's going on, and asking me all these questions. And I'm like, bro, how do you think I feel?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How do you cope with something like that, especially in such a short time? And you're asking me how I feel. I always felt like that was a stupid question. I'd rather people be like, I know it's a tough time, but
right,
I'm here for you.
Yeah.
I support you. That type of thing versus how are you feeling? Because I feel like when somebody asks that question, you either want me to lie and tell you, yeah, I'm doing the polite thing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Everything's great.
Or we're okay.
Do you really want to hear how I'm doing?
Right.
Yeah,
Do you
yeah.
really want to know? I feel like shit. I'm thinking about this, that, and the third. So it's after now been going on 5 months now.
Yeah.
it's still, I feel like right now, like we're still in shock.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like for me, I still have these moments where I'm like, you know, even when the new iPhone 15 dropped, I know it seems like such a silly thing to like
No,
compare, but me and my brother always talk tech.
Okay.
Always talk
That's
tech.
why.
You know, always talk about creative stuff, whether it's photography, video, whatever, all the latest toys, right?
Yeah.
So when the iPhone 15 Pro dropped with the USB-C, I'm like, oh, I gotta call Jeffrey and let him know, like, yo, did you see this? Like, they got log video on the new iPhones, and I'm like, oh, it becomes that realization, like, I can't call him, he's not here anymore.
Yeah.
You know, there's times where like I find myself, I'll still send a text message to his phone. I forgot actually Stephanie has his phone, and like with iPhone, if you're still on Wi-Fi, you still get text messages. So the phone number is already disconnected,
But you still get that.
but I didn't. It just didn't register in my brain. So I'm like texting, like, "Oh, I miss you, bro." Da 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 da. And then I'm sitting there just like bawling my eyes out, and then I see a little heart pop up on the thing, and I was like,
Yeah.
and then I look at Steph, and I go to Steph, and she's crying, and I'm like, "Oh, you read my text message? I didn't know that you were getting those."
Yeah.
So it's I don't really know how I'm doing. I think I'm in a season at this point of just like accepting that this is how I feel and allowing myself the space to like feel how I'm gonna feel, and but try not to get lost in the feelings.
I dig it.
You know.
I always respond with, "I'm okay as okay can be,"
Okay.
because it's like, I was telling you, and like I was telling Micah, I said the world rotates regardless without the person we love being here. So it's like we just like have to learn how to cope with it. So people, hey, how are you doing? And in reality, I want to like scream.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, we're okay as okay can be, because I think it's more like then they're asking how mom's doing and all that stuff. And we're just like, she's taking it day by day. So it's like, how do you respond to that? We can't say how she feels. I mean, we know how she feels, but inside we don't really know how she feels. You know, losing a son, and then prior to that, losing her husband and losing her dad, and it's like, okay.
And then her
She just went through
sick.
her getting sick on top of that. It's just like, it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot to go through. So we're just like, okay, it just feels like one by one we're just like eliminating, and it's just like it bothers.
Yeah.
I think the hard part, like in my own understanding of life and death, is like when you come to that realization, like this is, I won't be okay.
Yeah.
I have to kind of like adapt to life being broken in a way. And there's kind of like a liberating, weird feeling with that, where it's like, okay, then I am doing the best that I can do. I'm okay as okay can be.
And one day at a time.
One day at a time. I can't expect too much of myself. But then on the flip side, it's a very devastating experience. And not to relate, but to understand and sympathize in that degree. One of the things that was similar for me was unexpected. It was the one day
They're here.
the life was like the world was like this.
Right.
And now it was different like that. And so, you know, when we were talking, and I shared this with you both, like the conversation of mental health with men. And there's a lot of different ways, different stories, different topics of conversation when it comes to your brother Jeffrey, the situation that he was in. And it goes unnoticed. It goes swept under the rug. One of the things that I appreciated is that you're spearheading this so passionately. Was this a conversation, the topic of conversation, on your radar prior to, or was it because of your brother it really opened? Yeah, it was.
Micah's always talked about on his podcast, like on his his YouTube channels and stuff, about mental health and personally what he's experienced, what he's gone through, and we've had friends and family members tell us what they've gone through. And this has kind of like opened up the light more even after Jeffrey had passed, and I mean he was going through it a lot obviously when he was here, and we've tried to give him advice and stuff and preach whatever we can, but even after he passed, it hit us even more. It was a big dent.
I would say, yeah, I've always, you know, like she said, I have a YouTube channel. I have a podcast called Realistically Free, shameless plug.
Go for it, brother.
I'm sorry, do you have a napkin? Ready. Do you have a tissue?
So,
I feel like my nose is ready.
I've always
Thank you.
talked about mental health. Specifically, I talked about men's mental health, transgender men's mental health, transgender people.
Gotcha.
And what that looks like, and acclimating from being assigned female at birth or born as a woman and then transitioning to a man, and how that can look like mentally for someone maneuvering that. And so I always talked about mental health and men's mental health in general. And with my own personal struggles with mental health, you know, I struggle with depression. I have ADHD. I've struggled with PTSD. I was an alcoholic and a drug addict for a good majority of my life. Been sober now for like 9 years.
Congratulations.
So that's always I'm always proud about that. And so I've always talked about mental health, but not in this way. Once Jeffrey passed, I realized the places where I was failing to discuss, because I think that, and I don't know if you ever have this feeling when you get into social media, right? You always kind of want to be politically correct, or you want to be authentic to yourself, but you also kind of want to appease the audience. You want to appease people who are watching to a certain degree, right? You want to be accepted in society and your messaging, you know? And so I think I skirted around a lot of topics for fear of backlash, how I was going to be received. I mean, Stephanie can even tell you there's been plenty of times where we would do live streams or videos, and I would try to even refrain from using certain language. And, I don't want to say this word too much because I don't want to get censored, or I don't want to get taken off of YouTube, or, somebody's going to say, you can't say that word, or you can't say this, or you can't say that. So you're constantly like towing this line of being authentic, but appeasing an audience. And once Jeffrey passed away, and starting to really like sit with that of like, oh fuck, I failed. Like I failed in this area. I could have talked to him this way. I should have did this. I should have been more open in this way, even to the audience, of how maybe I could help somebody else out there, but I'm censoring myself.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that's kind of where it was like, okay, yeah, once Jeffrey died, I'm kind of just like, all the gloves are off. Like, fuck that. Like, if you don't like what I have to say, don't fucking watch.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it also comes down to like, you were aware of what the potential, like we call it politically correct. And I feel like in today's world, and I do the same thing. I dance the same dance in a way where it's like, I always hang my hat on being upfront and honest with, I'm learning as I'm going.
Right.
And so as much information as I'm getting and I'm embracing, I'm making an active effort to understand and discuss, but I have to be able to at some point be honest with my ignorance or how naive I am about something innocently. And then I'm like, show me, help me. But you're right. It's like, there's times where it's kind of like, fuck man, do I want to hashtag this because I don't want to offend somebody?
Yeah.
Because you're genuinely not trying. You're genuinely not trying to offend anybody, but you don't want to be lying to yourself.
Right.
You know
and
I
mean? Think there's also a component of that where it's like, people are always going to have an opinion, right? So it's also the question to myself sometimes of like, do I feel like dealing with this? Do I feel like dealing with the backlash that people are going to give me for discussing this topic and my opinion on this topic? And then I think that the internet can be so unforgiving in that if I say something today and I could change my mind on it tomorrow and have a conversation like this and grow from the conversation, they're going to be like, well, you fucking said that. Yeah. So stand on what you said. Well, I'm standing what I said, but it's okay for me to change my mind. Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm as the opposite. I'm just like, no, be outspoken. Like, we'll have discussions. Say, you think I should talk about this? And I'm like, yeah. Yeah. And I don't care who doesn't like it. It's not that. It's stop being insensitive. Like, you can't be like that all the time. And it's more like, you have to be you. Right. This is what we're talking about here. Like, this is what it is. Like, you can take it however you want to take it. Sometimes you're going to perceive information how you perceive it. Right. So it's like, just be you. Yeah. Just say what you have to say off your chest.
Yeah.
But that's the hard part, right? Is like, especially when we're talking about mental health. We're talking about really like hard topics. And I think that when someone's already in a dark place or in their feelings, right? We're always going to have that filter where we hear what we want to hear in a sense, or not what we necessarily want to hear, but we hear what we feel.
What we think, we feel.
Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah. We were just talking about that in the car. Like everybody has that filter, the story that they tell themselves. And it's usually based off of their own insecurity or their own feeling of, well, I don't feel good enough. And you're confirming that I'm not good enough by saying this, when that could be far from what the person said. Right. But that's what they heard. Yeah. That's what they got from the conversation. So it's like, there's always that line that you're towing of like, okay, I want people to perceive this the way that I'm intending it, and it's just not always possible.
Yeah, but I think like having conversations like this help in that, where it's like it helps give people a better understanding of where you're coming from when you're actively discussing it.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, like it's a very candid conversation. Like, I've said it before on the podcast. Like, I try to provide a platform where there is no judgment, so people are comfortable enough to have these conversations. But then on the flip side, like, it really is the viewer and the listener's responsibility to take in information, but then also do their due diligence to really wrap their head around what are we talking about, embrace it. Don't hold it against somebody. Like you said, the cancel culture, which I feel like there's a shift in that. It used to be really, really bad.
Yeah.
I feel like more people are outspoken. Like, no, I'm allowed to have a different opinion as I learn more information, as I grow and become a better person. That's just a way of life. So I can appreciate that. The reason why I ask that is because the topic of men's health, prior to the death of your brother, would tell me then that Jeffrey was he also part of those conversations with you as far as mental health?
We would have the conversations, but I think that there's a stigma in society as a whole when it comes to men's mental health in general, that the conversations that him and I would have, they never really went too far.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I said, when we talked privately, I had said, you know, I had a conversation with him about a month or two prior to him, you know, dying by suicide. And we were talking about our father, and we were talking about these traumatic experiences that we all had together as kids. And he's just like, you know, I miss Dad, and I just feel like, you know, everything in my life is wrong. And he was just like very like self-deprecating, you know. And I was telling him, like, you know, well, at the end of the day, bro, like, you lost Dad, like we lost Dad, like we all had this hard thing happen together, but the difference is you're stuck in it and we're trying to move forward. And like, it has to get to a point where you have to take responsibility of your feelings, go to therapy, talk to somebody, you know, work through these issues. Otherwise, at this point, you're just complaining.
Yeah.
No,
that's the reality. Like,
yeah.
You know, we do not have to identify with our mental illness. And that's the thing. I used to be that person, and I've seen so many other people out there who identify with it. I know somebody right now who literally got pins for every type of mental illness. I mean, puts it in their IG bio. Yeah. I'm freaking, what was it? I have BPD. I have this. I'm this, you know, and they identify with it. I'm a mute. I'm this. I'm that. Like, you're not, you know, no, these are parts of you or things that you have to deal with, but it's not who you are. It doesn't have to be who you are.
Sure.
Yeah.
So what are you doing about those mental illnesses? What are you doing about these issues that you have? Are you talking to someone? Are you finding healthy coping skills? Are you finding, you know, tools that you can use to get through this hard time in your life? Or are you going to identify with it and just say, I'm depressed?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I used to say I'm depressed, and like I told him, like, you know, I'm not depressed. I have depression, but I'm not depressed.
Yes, there's a
difference.
Yeah.
I have depression. I work through it. I deal with it, but I'm not depressed. I don't identify with it. It's a part of me. It's something I have to live with, but it's not who I am. It doesn't have to be who I am. And so we were having these conversations, and, you know, my brother kind of had a habit of we would go in circles. You know, he's, like, well, but you don't understand, and this and that. And I told him, I'm like, you want to be a victim. The reality is you want to be a victim.
Yeah.
That's the mentality I had. No, you want to be a victim because you keep identifying with it. We've been talking about the same things for the last, you know, 20 years that Dad has been dead. He's dead. He's not coming back.
Yeah.
What do you want me to say about this?
Yeah.
You have to take ownership of your life. You're 34 years old, bro.
Yeah.
You're 34. Like, do something different.
Yeah.
The definition of insanity is what? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result, right? But you're doing the same thing and you expect things to change. You know, I told him, I said, it gets to a point where you can't keep blaming mommy and daddy. You're an adult.
Yeah. I've had those same conversations with family members.
Yeah. You can't keep blaming our parents. You know, it has to get to a point where you recognize your parents are people and they made the decisions that they made with the information that they had. But we keep going in circles. So I was very like bruto with him.
Yeah, sure.
You know what I mean? Like I was very tough with him. Like, bro, get over it. Is essentially what I was saying to him. Get over it. What do you want me to say? We're saying the same thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, there are times where I think back on that conversation and I regret it. Like, well, maybe I should have been more compassionate. Maybe I should have just told him, it's okay that you're not working right now. Yeah. But let's figure out how we're going to get you a job. I didn't have that compassion for him that I typically would have for other people. And that's another thing I wanted to kind of bring up is it's so easy for us to have compassion sometimes, I think, for strangers than it is for our own family.
1,000%.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
All across the board.
It's so much easier for us to sit there and look. Like I was scrolling through Instagram the other day. I seen a post with, oh my God, what was it? That dude that does the different voices. Like he imitates people. I can't think of his name.
Frank?
No, it's
Jay Farrell?
It's not the Moreno. That he
does
like
the dude from SNL?
James Sheriff Farrell. That's
that
something
his
like
name?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I forget.
He does different like
Don't butcher me.
Oh yeah,
Something like that. Jay Farrell. Yeah.
Okay, so he does all the impressions or whatever. Well, it was an interview with him doing an impression of Kevin Hart and The Rock.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
And what's the guy's name that passed away by suicide? DJ.
Oh, Twitch. Yeah.
That was interviewing him.
Okay.
You look through those comments and it's like, oh, rest in peace, Twitch. Oh, I wish you could have found help. I wish somebody would have talked to you. I wish this. I wish that. This is a complete stranger that you have so much empathy and compassion for. And you're like, man, I wish this guy would have had someone to talk to. But when your family member comes to you and is saying, I'm hurting and I don't know what to do, we're like, get the fuck over it.
Yeah. I feel like that's a fair criticism of yourself, but it's also like you're human. I feel like because I've done the same thing, and it's like an opportunity to learn, but it sucks that it took this experience for you to learn from it. Mm-hmm. I feel like when people do that with celebrities, I said that's across the board. That goes with anything, even like, you know, in this experience of like doing the podcasting, and I'm sure you had the same experience where you're trying to do something you're passionate about. You get the most support from people that don't really know you.
Yep. Strangers.
The family, and that could be another conversation where it's like the dynamic of family and the mentality of, I've done what I can for you. What more do you want from me? Mm-hmm. And that you can attribute that to like, look, I grew up with you. You know, we're family. I see you every day. We have all these memories. I like hold you to a different standard than I would somebody that I don't know. And it's unfortunate.
I think it comes down more to that when you talk about family, a lot of times, right, we trauma bond with our family. Yeah. We go through the same experiences, right? Like, so with siblings, like Stephanie and I, obviously we both lost we lost our father. Yeah. With Jeffrey, okay, we all lost our father. It was something that it was a shared experience, right? And we each of us handled that experience in a different way. Yeah. But because we were able to get through it, it's easier for us now to go to our brother and say, well, we got over it. Why can't you? Why can't you? Yeah, sure. It's easier, you know, when it comes to family, you know more of their story, you know more of their life. And sometimes you went through the same experiences with them. And I think sometimes we have this mentality of like, there's always somebody out there that has it worse. Yeah, that's right. There's people out there. There's people out there that are starving. They have it worse. Yeah, you know. And so why can't you just get over this thing? That's what we grew
up hearing, though, too. Yeah,
right. Oh, you think I'm such a bad parent? You got food. You got clothing. No. You're right. You were the good enough parent. Yeah, that's you did just the basic necessities, and you think that makes you a good enough parent. Yeah, right. So I think that's where the conversation is a little bit different when we're talking about strangers and family, is that we have this mentality, well, I know this person, I know everything that they went through, even though you never really know how someone internalizes something. Sure. But we assume that because we saw them go through it, or, you know, we had that shared experience, well, they'll get over it. They just have to get over it. I did. Yeah. Or like that whole conversation that I don't know if you've seen that on social media, that whole conversation about like workers, right? Like the boomers versus like the millennials and like Gen Z, and they'll say, we used to have to work 7 days a week and you have it easier, and you know, if you struggle for something, it'll make you appreciate it more. It's that I went through this thing, so I want you to go through it, because then it makes what I went through worth it. Right. And I think it's the same thing with mental health. It's like, well, I got through it, so you can too, or you should be able to, or you should suffer the way that I suffered, because then it makes my suffering valid.
Well, people are different though, and I hate when people say it like that, or like how our grandma used to say, you celebrate your wins and you celebrate your losses, no matter what, because you appreciate everything. You thank God all the time. We go through it sometimes with each other or by ourselves, and like you said, like what our brother stuck on that. Like I stuck on it too. He stuck on it when our dad passed away. It wasn't easy for us growing up, but we went through a lot with our mom, personally, and it was just more like we had to figure out like how can we grow from it. I was a few weeks away from graduating, and it was like I started messing up towards the end, and where I was just like, I don't want to do this anymore. But then it was just more like I had to think like, I know that our dad wouldn't be happy if I messed up now and just dropped out of high school. Started college, didn't really take that year to kind of like grieve, and was messing up that first year of college, and was just like, I don't care. Started doing drugs, all that stuff, and I don't care. I'm just gonna do whatever I want to do. But then I had to like stop and think like, you know, if our dad was here, would we be in the same limelight like we're doing now? Probably not, because we had that structure. You know, he was our person to go to. So it's kind of like we had to explain to Jeffrey, like, you can't do this. You can't make excuses as to why you're doing what you're doing, or feel how you can feel how you feel, but like, don't make excuses. You know what I mean? So it was just kind of like, he's like, well, I feel like you guys are more successful than me, and I'm just doing this and I'm doing that, and I feel like a bum and I'm doing this. I'm like, well, let's help you. Like, we try to help you. Like, he traveled a lot. So it was just like, I was like, how did you, if you had time to do this, we can help you do that. He came back from New York, and that same day I got him a job, and I was just like, listen, opportunities are endless for you, and we have to get you somewhere where you feel like you're safe, where you can be like, okay, I can do this, I can do that, without having the fact to worry about what happened in the past. So it was hard.
It was hard, but I think there was a lot of times too, like I said, we didn't give him that grace and compassion. Yeah, because
I think we're also learning too from that. Like we didn't have that knowledge, or we didn't have that understanding of like, hey, mental health this and mental health that, and it's just like, I feel
that's
like
not our era.
No, I know that, but I mean, like the compassion. But yeah, like you said, the compassion that we didn't know. We get the fuck over it. Like, it is what it is. No, and I can't say that because I'm sort of kind of like that too. I'm more like the way he adapts to certain things and the way I adapt to certain things is different. Like, I'm more like put it in a little box and just throw it away, or hide it for a little bit and just continue moving forward.
Repress it.
Yeah, I tell her pretty much. Yeah, repress it. But that's how I deal with things. Sure, yeah. Feelings, right? So it's just like that's what me and ooh, feelings. I just started therapy, and I'm just like iffy about it. I'm just like I'm like, this is a little too much for that 1 hour, and I'm just like, come on. And she's just nice, this therapist, and she's wonderful. But I'm just like. I even told them, I was like, I don't know if I want to do this right now. I'm just like, 'cause I'm not like that. Yeah. I'm just more like, I can still go with the flow and process certain things, and then like when someone goes through it, like they're upset, and I'm just like, oh.
No, she's very emotionally avoidant.
Yeah, but that's just how I deal with things. So I'm just like, I mean, I could talk you through certain things or whatever. Like, I've had friends come up to me like, hey, listen, I'm going through this and that. All right, cool. Hey, let's figure this out. Yeah. Let's take step by step. Why do you feel like you're going through this? What happened? Let's talk about it, and we'll go through it, the process. And I'm just like, okay. Whereas, you can help others, but you can't help yourself. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that happens a lot.
And that happens way more than you want to admit too.
Yeah, yeah.
And I feel like growing up, and I'm in my mid 40s, growing up in a Puerto Rican household that went to church, had
Catholic church,
yeah,
that's us. I went to San Juan, okay. strict.
We were in St. Bridget's in New York.
Yeah. Okay, right.
Oh, we're talking about like the old traditional Catholic church with the
2-3 hours.
What
and we're
the hell is it called?
Falling asleep.
With the incense or the
I forgot what that's called.
I forgot what it's called. I think it's like frankincense.
Yeah.
Frankenmyrrh, something like that. They're like this old white men, and I'm like. Yeah, yeah. So I get
sleeping at church,
and you don't.
Oh no, you didn't sleep at church because Dad used to be like,
he'd be like, get up, wake up.
I used to get pulled up by my ear. If I didn't stand
put
up,
the money in the damn thing.
Everybody had $1 to put in the collection plate.
Yeah. But I bring that up because like that. I think the cool thing is that and sometimes when you're too close to the trees, you can't see the forest from the trees.
Yeah,
is that. We are in the era of understanding how our parents, who were the boomers, our grandparents, who more than likely immigrated, had to adapt. Mm-hmm. And so there's this culture of, I did it this way. You can do it too. Mm-hmm. We need to keep our head down, keep our nose to the grindstone, that type of thinking, where now we are in this era of, no doubt, that worked, but we have options. Mm-hmm. And we can't ignore and sweep under the rug a lot of the things that our ancestors did. Mm-hmm. And it's with sympathy because I understand why they did it. I get it. I empathize with that. But it is also like hurting us, not talking, especially when it comes to the topic of mental health with men. And the reason why I'm circling back around with that is because that is really the elephant in the room is the mental health in men. And I'm guilty of it. And I'm sure you could relate where it's like, yeah, I got a lot of shit I need to talk about, but I'm
not going to right now.
I'm not going to because my family needs me. My wife needs me. I need to be present.
Yeah.
Like, who am I going to fuck? I can't fall apart. If I fall apart, you know,
everything falls apart.
And it's not good that men think that way. But one of the things that I was thinking about also where it's like, there's some of it that's like innate. It's ingrained in me to the point where I would actually vouch for some of it being okay. As a man, that's how I'm thinking. No, I get it, but you have to understand. That's where I will start going with it. But I genuinely need to be present. And so it's just like this balance.
You being present when you have all of these things in your mind that you're stressing about? You're not being present with your family, with your friends, with your kids. You're not with your wife. How are you supposed to be present when you have all these things in your mind?
Right.
Bills, work, all the things that you have to do in a day. Right. But in your mind, you're like, damn, I'm sad today, but I can't be sad. I got to go to work. I got to do. I mean, literally, like, what was it last year? I mean, I had a fucking complete mental breakdown. You remember that? I had all the years of just keeping everything in here, working 2 jobs, supporting my wife, taking care of, that, the financial aspects of it, working 2 jobs, doing all these stuff. And then I had a health scare, almost thought I had cancer, had to have surgery, lost my job, lost my home. I mean, literally homeless, like lost everything because I fell apart.
Yeah. Yeah.
I could not, it literally got to the point, and my wife could vouch for this, where I was literally laying in bed one day and I was just bawling my eyes out. And she's like, babe, you're late for work. I was like, I'm not going. I physically just could not move. I could not get out of bed. I'm like, I can't do this. I'm falling apart. I'm doing all of this on my own. I need help. Like it's enough to have to swallow my pride and tell you that I need your help. I can't do this by myself. Yeah. And my world fell apart. Yeah. So how was I being present by locking everything? I'm fine. I'm okay. I'm fine. Absolutely. I'm just going to go to work, work. That's going to fix everything. I'll just go to work, and then my wife's like, you don't spend time with me. And I'm like, well, how the fuck am I going to spend time with you? I got to go to work. You know what I mean? Like, you can't have it both ways. You want me to go to work or you want me to be home? Like, what do you want me to do? Like,
and this trauma usually sneaks up, and I'm trying not to be, like, I'm not trying to say this is only for men, but as a man, I feel like it sneaks up later on because of the consistent, like, I'm good. I stay focused. Yeah. And it makes me wonder, like, my grandfathers on both sides were alcoholics. It makes me wonder, at that time in the 20s and 30s and 40s, were you suppressing so much shit that you resorted to? Because back then you don't talk about therapy. We don't do that.
Yeah. That's for white people.
That's for people with money, and we ain't got money.
But it's true. I know. It's true. Like that's something that growing up in a Hispanic household. No. You don't do that. That's for crazy people. That's for white people. That's like for rich people. We don't got to do that. Whatever happens in this house stays in this house.
Yeah, we figure it out.
But we don't really figure it out. We just never talk about it.
Right. And there's some honor to it, but at the same time, when you get older, you're like, but shit never really fucking worked out.
Right. It did. That's like what my therapist loves to tell me. How's that working for you? Yeah. That's the favorite question. How's that? So you've been, repressing everything. How's that working for you?
I'm here now, ain't I?
I'll be like, right? I'm like, hey, you might give me one of those like hugging jackets. Right. I can hug myself for a little bit. Give myself some self-love, you know what I mean? Yeah. But
so let's switch the conversation then real quick, because I want to talk about Jeffrey more. Yeah. I've never met Jeffrey. We were just kind of talking about our mutual friends somewhat, that, the world is small. That when you meet new people, you realize
6 degrees of separation.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And so it's a shame that when I'm looking, I follow his, I was looking through his social media pages, and there's a lot of photography that I'm noticing, a lot of great pictures. Outside looking in, you wouldn't be able to tell. Can you share with me the day your brother passed away? There's a lot going on here. Mm-hmm. It doesn't do it justice to just say he passed away. There was a lot going on with your brother prior up to that point where he took his own life. Is there a specific place that you want to start talking about what led to the passing of your brother? I put that in your hands because I understand that there's a lot of
components.
Yeah. Go. Oh, I'm like, it all started when he was just a little wee.
Right. No, it all started in our daddy's nutsack.
No, well, I guess the reason what I'm trying to say is
we were swimming around. We were the strongest.
The reason why I bring that up, if I'll help with this, is that your brother was under a lot of pressure to be something that I felt was impossible. It was impossible to ask him to do this, that, and the third, and to be this, that, and the third. And I feel like when we talk about mental health in men, that is one of the components where it's like,
unrealistic
I'm going to jump through these hoops, not realizing what I'm doing to myself. People outside looking in may see me and be like, this isn't good. But when you're in it, you're trying to appease who you're with. You're trying to appease friends or family. You don't see the hoops. You don't see the reason why they're doing what they're doing. The reason why I bring this up is because it was obvious to me by watching the video. He was under a lot of pressure in a relationship. And I don't want to speak for you both, but is it suffice to say that was a huge caveat in it, but there was something else that came along with your brother into that relationship?
I would say that obviously we're theorizing some of this, right? Because we can't ask him anymore. But just from the outside looking in and knowing our brother the way that we did, Jeffrey struggled with self-esteem issues for as long as I could remember. I remember even being real small, like probably like 9 or 8 years old, and I would help my brother with like his reading homework. He'd help me with my math homework because my brother had trouble reading. He was illiterate. He couldn't read. He couldn't write. He had dyslexia. He struggled with learning.
Okay.
He wasn't a stupid man, but he had his issues with learning. Really, really good at math and putting things together, and good with electronics, and good with certain
video games.
Like he was a very hands-on person, good in that way, but he struggled with reading and writing. So Jeffrey always had that low self-esteem, and there's so many layers to it, right? Like all of us having different fathers. That's something that really he really struggled with, Okay. I mean, he learned that he wasn't biologically related to our dad who raised us when he was like 13, 14 years old, because our oldest brother was an asshole and was like, you're adopted, or that's not your dad.
Oh, you have another brother? Yeah,
we do. We don't don't talk about him. He's basically our mother's son. He's not our brother.
Okay, gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
He's a piece of shit, for lack of a better word.
Gotcha.
So he basically he was the one that told Jeffrey, oh, that's not your dad.
Okay, wow.
And so that was the first thing that like broke him, of like, what do you mean he's not my dad?
Yeah.
Then as he got older, struggled in school with learning and stuff like that. There was a little bit of bullying when we moved from New York City to here.
Okay.
So he would get into a lot of fights and stuff like that, people just messing with him and stuff. And so he kind of, so there was that aspect of it. Then you have then our dad passes away, our dad who raised us, which is Stephanie's biological father. Like he passed away. And then it was just like, okay, now you went from, you don't really have an education. You're too young to work. Cause I mean, he was 17, not too young to work, but he wasn't working yet.
He was
17 and you were 16.
Yeah.
Right.
Or no, you were both 16.
No, we were both 16.
Because dad died 3 days before your birthday.
Yeah.
So no, you would have been 15. You would have been 15. Jeffrey would have been 16, going on 17.
That the gears are turning here.
No, because I was a senior, so I was already 16 going on 17. I graduated early. Jeffrey was right. Me and Jeffrey, so we're like Irish twins. We're like 11 months apart, 10 to 11 months apart. So it's like, that's why,
But her birthday's in September and Jeffrey's in October. Yeah, so for literally 1 month, they're the same age.
We're the same age.
Wow.
Yeah, so our father passed away 3 days before my birthday.
Her birthday.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you figure he wasn't working at the time. You're 17 years old, struggling in school, getting into fights, having those situations. Now the man of the house, essentially, who was the sole breadwinner, passes away.
Yeah.
That's a lot of responsibility to put on a 17-year-old boy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? To
Absolutely.
grow up. So, you know, dad passes away. I know that he saw a lot with my mom. I mean, that was our mom's first husband. So you're like, you know, he was like trying to essentially pick up the pieces for mom and be strong for me and Steph, who, you know, I'm the youngest. So it's like, I'm like, you know, he was the one that told me that dad, like he was the one that my mom couldn't break the news to me.
Yeah, we remember. So I remember that day we had to make sure we had our uncle's wife at the time pick him up from school because we were like, oh crap! Like, everything was happening.
Everything
while
was
we were
happening
coming
in
out
the
of school.
house.
Yeah, in the household while we were coming out of school. So our dad passed away in his sleep. So we had just we had just signed to get a new house right by the WJL, and literally
it was their first house that they ever bought.
Yeah,
my mom and my.
So within less than an hour of signing the contract,
he dies.
He's like, I'm gonna go.
They signed the contract.
They literally just signed the contract, and one of my best friends, who lived on the block, we go to school together, and his dad, who speaks sign language, he doesn't speak. He was like, hey, something's happening in your house. We need to go right away. Picks us up from school, and we're just like. For him to say that, we thought it was our mom. Our mom struggled with heart disease and stuff like that, so we thought it was our mom.
Didn't even have a heart. We
We
didn't know about mom's heart disease yet.
No, but she was having strokes and stuff like that. I remember Dad telling us he was having strokes and all that stuff. So we thought it was our mom. She had issues, like always had like medical issues.
Okay.
We get to the house and I see my older brother outside and he's just like crying and I'm like, what's wrong with mom? I didn't even think anything about dad. That didn't even cross my mind. That he was like, dad passed away. All I remembered was like everything went blank. I was screaming. I know the whole block came out. And was just like, so my friend knew, like, he already knew something was wrong. And I was just like, wow, I remember running up the stairs, seeing him laying down, all stuff. It was just crazy. That's it. Like it felt like the world stopped.
Yeah.
Jeffrey comes out of school. I see him walking. He sees me crying. He's like, what's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? And I tell him, and he's just like, no. He couldn't bear with it. And then we're like, where's Micah? And then we were like, we had my uncle's wife at the time pick him up from school and just take him to their house. I knew when my aunt take him to their house. Yeah.
Like when I came outside from school and I saw my aunt, I knew something was wrong.
Sure. Because that wasn't normal.
Yeah, it's not normal. We don't do that. Like we always pick each other up. So it's like, you know, our mom's there, dad's there, whatever. We pick somebody up. We wound up taking him to their house and we met up with him later on to let. Because
my dad was still in the house.
Yeah.
So they didn't want me to see.
They were trying to prepare him.
He was still in the house. They were trying to get his body out.
Yeah.
So Jeffrey was the one that broke the news to me, and so. I can now, as an adult, looking back on that, I could see like how much pressure he had to step up.
Sure.
And so, you know, that situation, then we winded up not getting the house because my mom couldn't afford the house on her own. So she had to buy a smaller, you know, cheaper house and stuff like that. We, you know, family rallied together to help her get the house. We moved to that house. And there was just constant issues between my mom and him, bumping heads. Like mom felt like you should be working, you should be helping, you should be doing. Like she put a lot of pressure on him to be the man, to be the man of the house. And you know, looking back on it, I could understand, I could sympathize with that line of thinking because of, like you were saying earlier, where our culture is and where it comes from.
Absolutely.
But then now, like being in a healthier place, I can see where it was wrong.
Yeah.
Because it's like that's a child that you're asking to grow up and not. It's almost like be your man, and you know what I mean. And you know what I mean.
Assume the man responsibility.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So, so it was just constant bumping heads because now at this point, Jeffrey's rebelling. He wants to live his own life. He doesn't want to be responsible for us. You know, Stephanie's working 2 jobs. Like at this point, it's like, you know,
how old are you all? Forgive me.
I was 12.
Okay.
Steph was 16 and Jeffrey was 17.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So at this point, I'm just kind of like now, like all this thing's happening. And, you know, obviously like now I'm looking out like, okay, now I'm by myself because everybody is doing whatever. And I'm just trying to like figure out where I fit in this new dynamic.
Yeah.
You know, so Jeffrey was very much like just I could see that change. Like Jeffrey shifted. It's like he became more cold. He became more distant. He became more withdrawn. Okay. You know what I mean? And so we went from being kids and playing video games together and building, you know, like model cars together and all of that to like barely talking to each other.
Yeah.
You know, to him being like he used to tell me all the time, those who need help themselves.
Yep.
So help yourself. Like I would ask him for help and he'd be like, no, help yourself. Like I used to get mad at him for it, but like as I got older, I understood.
Yeah.
For he was telling me, don't rely on anybody.
Yep.
Like rely on yourself.
Yeah.
it was hard as a kid hearing that, like, well, I'm your younger, like, sibling, like, you know what I mean? Like, you're supposed to look out for me.
Kind of cutthroat hearing that from you, brother.
Right. But now as an adult, I'm glad that he told me that because I was able to survive on my own.
And also shows you where he was kind of, he grew up a lot in that regard, where usually you typically learn something like that as you become a young adult and you're out working and you're realizing the world isn't really sunsets and rainbows and all this bullshit. To learn something like that at a young age, that you got to take care of yourself, fuck everybody else, pretty much.
I think that's where it hit us, because we thought that you see it always happening to everybody else, and then once it happened to us, we were like, oh shit, reality just kicked in. Like, hold up. Yeah. What are we doing here? Yeah. And we're just like, our mom wasn't really our mom anymore to a certain extent, but then it's like, as we got older, we had to think back, like, okay, she was going through a lot too. Right. She had 4 kids she's dealing with, she's doing all this stuff, and then it's like, she's doing it by herself at that point. She's working, she's picking up extra shifts or whatever, and we're just like, we're here just doing, we're mad at her. We didn't understand. So like, you know, I said, I was
as a child, I used to be so mad at her, like,
or she would get upset and she would hear it yourself, and she would say, well, you know, one day when you have kids, you'll see. And here I am. I think, you know, I have my 2 kids. I have my kids now. I'm just like, you know, you see. Well, I mean, I've always been the type. As soon as I got my working papers at 14, I was always working. Yeah. I was like, oh, I want to work. I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to learn how to save money. All that stuff. Here, fast forward, having my 2 kids, and I'm like, I see the struggle that they sort of kind of went through, or like they didn't want to tell us certain things, like, you know, adult stays in the adult place, a kid stays in a kid's place, so they don't tell us certain things, or like we would hope to hear certain things, and we're just like, we'll talk amongst each other, like, what's going on, what, you know, all that stuff. Being older, you understand that, and you're just like, wow, like, you start to appreciate certain things, you know, that they went through, or like try to have that understanding, like, you know, mom wasn't all up there in the head. Mom was going through her own, she was going through her own personal stuff. Dad was emotionally going through his personal, because he wasn't the type to express his feelings either. And I think that's where I get that from, where I'm just like, we're kind of like, what is it, military brats, and you're just like, oh, you hide your feelings, just go do what you gotta go do, like, don't worry about that, it'll either work itself out or you'll figure out a way. Right. And that's what we did, and I think that's why we're like that, though. Or like how Jeffrey became a certain way as well after our dad passing away.
Oh yeah, because Dad, I can't think of one time I ever saw Dad cry.
I did.
I'm saying me. I never saw Dad cry.
Yeah, I never saw my father cry.
I never saw him cry. We never talked about our feelings. You know what I mean? Nothing. It was just kind of like, oh, you had a good day at school? Cool. Yeah. Like, do good at school. Do, you know, get a job, get a career, take care of yourself, take care of your family. That's it.
Yeah, don't rely on anybody else.
Don't rely on nobody. You'll be all right. Like, that's it.
You know, you never let a female or a man, you know, try to control your thing. You make your own
You always got
stuff.
your own money, so that a man or a woman can never control you.
Yeah, they can't ever say, I did this and that for you. And I think that's why I'm like that, too. I'm just like, nope. Yeah. I make my own. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah. So
can't tell me nothing.
Stemming off of what we were just talking about in regards to where Jeffrey was, it sounds like, which is typical in a lot of people's, he's the oldest or second oldest?
Second oldest, yeah.
But he was responsible for, or at least he felt responsible for
all
of
us.
Yeah.
And I'm the oldest. I can understand that. I feel like that unsung hero type of vibe that young children go through, where it's just like, this is I'm taking care of this for mom, I'm taking care of this for dad, I need to make sure y'all are okay. But you couple that with somebody who was also dealing with their own issues that he didn't really know how to explain, especially at a young age. And when you talked about your mom and your dad, they too didn't have the tools, which is very common. When I think about my mom and my dad, and we have conversations with my mom now, it's like, y'all didn't have the tools. Like, where we are is leaps and bounds from where our parents were at our age. And the goal really is like for our children to be leaps and bounds from where we are. But it takes conversations like this. It takes, you know, kind of normalizing the conversation. Jeffrey seemed to have a lot on his plate mentally, you can say emotionally. And this was unbeknownst to you. I'm sure at a young age you weren't seeing those things, those signs of like, hey, you know, again, this goes back to, we had talks, we had conversations. After a while, I'm like, homie, we gotta do what we gotta do. Right.
We should feel like there's always so many excuses you can make as to why you're not doing what you have to do.
Yeah, and it's a fine line, because those are the right things to say to somebody that you love. I love you. Now get the fuck off. Like, what one more do you want? But then it's also like that page turns one way or the other. Yeah. Jeffrey, how old was he when he passed away?
34.
He was 34 years old.
Yeah.
Which is extremely young. You had shared a video. Let me set this for those that are watching and listening, because we kind of just started talking, and I don't like setting like we're talking about this and then we go into it. I like having a candid conversation that flows. But for those that are listening and watching, and obviously I would like the both of you to really take this over, is Jeffrey passed away, committed suicide. He was dealing with what seemed to be extremely toxic relationship that was putting him in a position where he wasn't probably able to make safe and sound decision making, and or he probably felt like this is it. This is the best thing I can do. Speaking for myself, I've been in dark places before. In relationships, it's very easy to get clouded with a judgment of everybody's better off. I'm better off.
Yeah.
And so talk to me about whatever you can. Obviously, I understand watching your video, you were very careful with not mentioning a name. You were very careful not giving the attention. But when we're talking about your brother in a relationship that was toxic, he ends up taking his life from it. Where does this type of part of his life start?
So to kind of give a little bit more context,
please,
kind of bring this together, right? Our brother already struggled with self-esteem issues. That was kind of the point of sharing a little bit of his backstory of how we grew up. Because when you're dealing with somebody who already has low self-esteem, who has all of these expectations put on them, whether it be from family, friends, your significant other, it starts to become like a pressure cooker.
Yeah, it's
going to keep boiling, and eventually the pressure has to be released. You know, he meets this woman, and like I said, or was starting to kind of say before, he had his first like long-term girlfriend, like that was like the first love of his life. And even when they broke up, me and him had plenty of other conversations. He was still in love with that woman.
Gotcha.
She was the one that got away. The first woman.
From his words or what you've noticed?
Both.
Copy that.
It was that I wish I would have been better to her, and I would have been in a better place financially, you know, maturity level, all of those different things, because they were very young, you know, when they got together. And so, you know, that was the one that got away. You know, there's a lot of stuff that happened in between, but he always looked at her like the one that got away. He loved her. He wanted to make things work. But she was at a place where it's just like, I'm done.
Gotcha.
You know, fair enough. It happens, right? So he never quite, like, in my opinion, he never quite got over her. You know what I mean? But, you know, he still had those feelings that, like, hey, I want to find somebody to love and love me. You know, I want to have a family, you know. And so he meets the woman before the woman that he was with last. He meets this other woman who, they're dating, whatever. He's working, you know, 2 jobs and, you know, trying to, you know, support her and do what we all think as men is what is our job to do.
Yeah.
Protect, provide.
Absolutely.
And you know, that's it. That's our jobs, right? Protect and provide.
Right.
That's what we're designed for, right? So he's doing all that. The woman goes, I guess the woman had cheated on him and like got pregnant. So our brother thought that it was his child.
Well, hold up. Just like the one that got away, she did the same thing.
Yeah, they both did that. The one that got away, they both did this. They both cheated on him.
Both the kids weren't his.
But he thought that they were his kids
because of what they told him.
Right.
So they were like, "Oh no, this is your kid," and all that stuff. But once we got the DNA and it proved that it wasn't his kid, then it was. Then obviously the woman apologized and all that bashing that she was doing to him. Him not, you're not stepping up. You're not being a father. You're not being a man. And here we bought clothes and all that stuff for the baby. We still gave it to her. We were like, here, because that's the type of person we are.
Yeah.
And, you know, but once the baby came, and first of all, it was a whole struggle just to even get the DNA, because this woman didn't want to do it all of a sudden. Well, what do you have to hide? If it's his kid, let him know.
And that's when I made sure. Like on and off
he was on and off, and it was like he wanted this on the birth certificate. I said, no, let's not do that just yet, because you know, after 18 years, you're liable for that child. In the state of Pennsylvania, you know, certain states no, but you know, No. So I was like, we're not falsifying documentation just yet.
So this is both. These were both
the same. Yeah.
This is not the last woman that we'll talk about.
Sure,
we're just kind of again setting.
Both of them just did the same thing though.
Yeah.
Both of them did the same thing, and then once we found out, it was just like we knew in our hearts that we were like, no, just something didn't add up right. I'm sitting there. I talked to my brother. Me and my brother are close, and I'm just like, let's just wait it out. Let's just wait.
Yeah.
So we did, and we did just that, and he was heartbroken. He kept those paperwork. When we passed away, we went through his stuff, and he kept the paperwork. So he wasn't the father to those kids, but he was willing. Kids. Yeah, he was willing to do that because he wanted a family.
Even with the second girlfriend, not the one that got away, but the second girlfriend that did that.
Even the first one.
No, I know. I'm just saying that he. But remember, at that point, then the first one that got away was kind of like, I'm done. I'm over it. I need to figure this out because now, like, this kid wasn't Jeffrey's.
Yeah.
Even though Jeffrey was trying to do stuff for the kid, it was just kind of like
still buying the baby stuff, still doing whatever, just to kind of be there.
Like, hey, like this isn't your responsibility, which I do respect her for that.
Sure.
Hey, this isn't your responsibility. I'm not gonna do all of this and that. I'm gonna move on and do what I need to do for my kid. She's happy now.
The second one was
good for her. Moved on, has more kids, all that. I'm still in contact with her. I got no issue with her. She's not a bad person.
Right.
They were just, I always say it like this, some people, it's like the wrong place at the wrong time.
Sure. It seemed like it was an unfortunate circumstance, but she at least did her due diligence once everything was out. Like, I'm not going to keep holding this over you.
The second one was a different story.
The
mother wanted to force
the baby on Jeffrey.
Yeah, you can still sign the birth certificate. And also, I was like, no, we're not doing that. My mom wasn't having that. We weren't having that. And then it was just one of those. I told him, I was like, do you really see yourself being with this person for a long term?
Right.
And then especially like knowing that this person could just leave you up and leave without saying anything. But this is technically my kid. Yeah, you signed the birth certificate, but that's the only legal tie you have, but doesn't necessarily this person's not yours.
What you're feeling now also could change.
Yeah, it can change. So we were like, we kind of had to like push him in that direction. Like, no, let's not do that.
And the thing is that he was still willing again to take care of this kid that wasn't his because in his words, no, but like,
our dad did it. So why can't
So why can't I do it? I can do it. Like I want a family. I want to take care of. I want to raise kids and stuff like that. So like. I'll do it.
Yeah.
And we were like, bro, like, but why do it for this woman who is like not really good?
Who not worthy.
Yeah,
right.
she wasn't
worthy of it.
Yeah. But she was still doing her dirt. She was still doing whatever.
Yeah, she was still doing the other stuff. That's why I was
I was just like, no, because you don't want to be what they call them, pendejos. Like, you don't want to do that. No, we're not doing that. No. And our mom wasn't having that. So it was kind of like we had to let him know, like, hey, listen, give him advice. Maybe you should just rethink this before actually doing it. So he kind of snapped out of it and was just like, all right, you know what? I got to leave this person alone. This person's not good for me. Yeah. Have a great life.
Yeah.
Yep. Moved on. Then he went to his hoe phase. Okay, we all have our hoe phase, right?
Fuck it.
Right? Yeah, you're single. You do you. Go ahead.
So at this point, Jeffrey used to say, well, I guess I can't have kids because he's busting in all these women raw and he ain't getting nobody pregnant. So he's like, fuck it. I'm going to go through my hoe phase.
Yeah.
So he went through his hoe phase and, he started being friends with this other one. We'll call her Jess.
Okay, yeah. I remember that name.
We'll call her Jess. So he meets Jess. They're like just friends. Like they met through mutuals and stuff. And again, to kind of tie it all together, you figure for all this time, he's struggling with that self-worth.
Yeah.
Feeling like, damn, like every woman I meet is like, just like it's not working out. I don't have the family that I want, and he used to say all the time to me and stuff, like, and he would say it to me often, like, you don't get it because you're married, so like you don't understand how.
Like
it feels.
I envy that, yeah.
Like you have a partner to go through life with. He used to tell me that, and I'm like, you can find that too, though.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you just have to keep looking. Like it doesn't happen overnight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, shit. And I used to tell him, yo, bro, like me and my wife, like we were in each other's circle for years and years and years, never knew it. So like we never knew it. And then it's like when the time was right, it happened.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, hey, maybe there's going to be somebody like that 6 degrees of separation, somebody who knows somebody that knows that person. And then that's how it's going to happen.
Yeah.
You don't know. Like you just got to keep your eye out, but like work on yourself first.
That's the thing. Is work on yourself, love yourself.
Yes.
Enjoy the process.
Right.
Date yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
And get into a good space financially, and of course that was the man in me, right? Like, no, you need to be good financially.
Yeah.
And all of these things. So when you meet a woman, like you have a better like you have better options.
Yeah.
Because like you don't want these hood rap.
Which
you know what I mean?
I feel like that's a fair assessment to a degree. Like I get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
That is a fine line where it's because you don't want somebody that doesn't have that goes back to what your parents were saying. Make sure you take care of yourself so you're not relying on other people.
Right.
You don't want to be put in a position where you need to be taken care of because those people are, and what it sounds like is they get taken advantage of. Yep. And when it's the wrong person that gets put into that equation, they will use and abuse that type of person.
Or he used to always say, like, I can't be in a relationship if I can't offer that person anything.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, I mean, yeah, you can offer your person your love, your respect, and all that, but sometimes some people want more.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, he
I
used
used
to
to
always
tell
say
him all
that.
the time, Leo. He's like, oh, but I'm like, yo, bro, love don't pay the bills.
Yeah, love don't pay the bills.
Love don't pay the bills. And like, you know, sometimes you can love somebody so much and have so much like love there, but it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
You're not compatible, or there's no respect, or there's no, you know what I mean? Like there's something that no matter how much you love that person, it doesn't work.
Yes.
Yeah.
So fix these other things, work on these other things, right? Work on your insecurities, work on your attitude, work on your temper, you know, because Jeffrey did have a temper, you know, so work on those things, and you know, the right person will come along.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you're not an ugly dude. You're not, you know what I mean? You're
you're
funny.
Sharp looking cat.
Yeah, you know, I just tell him like, look, man, look, we ain't GQ, bro. But you know, we not, you know what I mean? Like I'm not gonna be on Men's Fitness anytime soon. Neither one of us. Okay.
Yeah.
But like we're not ugly. I was
you
like,
can make it work.
Yeah.
right, get it. You know,
There's always somebody out there for somebody. I always say that.
Yeah.
It is. You'd be surprised. You'd be like,
hey,
but
look,
it works.
how many women out there, they put makeup on, they do whatever, and like they look completely different with the makeup off.
Yeah.
Hey, get a haircut, you know, do this. You can sharpen yourself up and you know, catfish a little bit. You'll be fine. You know. You know what I'm saying?
When the makeup comes off, you're like, whoa.
Yeah. Whoa, there it is.
Hold on.
They're not even getting out of the car. They're just halfway out. Like, wait a minute.
Like, turn over and look. Whoa.
There it is.
That's not the woman I went to bed with last night.
Look at your phone real quick.
Right. Like,
where's that?
Hold on. How much did I have to drink last night? You know, so anyway, he's dealing with all of that. So he meets Jess. They're friends or whatever. Remember, he was in his whole face, so he wasn't really like worried about her. You know what I mean? He's messing around with, and Jeffrey, like, I don't know what it is. I said, bro, you have like crazy luck with these women, because he will find women, bro, that fly him out
to different Vegas. Like, he was in California. He was out
different
there,
states and stuff like that. Like he was basically like he was in like an escort. I feel like
feels like it,
I told him, I said, bro, are you, like, be honest with me, are you a male escort?
No.
Like, are you a gigolo?
Like a certain type of Uber.
Teach me the ways.
I used to tell my wife, like, look, let me find out what Jeff's doing. Just be okay with it for a little bit. You know what I mean? I
used to be like, let me get a sugar daddy. Whatever.
Yo, like
I don't gotta give him no sugar though. It didn't work, but
you can't even front. Like some of these women, some of them he wasn't having sex with. Like,
yeah, they were just crazy about him. They were friends, but
like they just.
I'll fly you out. He'd be in Vegas for like a month. California, he'd be out there.
He's
chilling in
out
Florida.
There.
I'm like,
I was like, bro, teach me your ways?
Yeah,
how do I get somebody to like take care of me and like not do anything? Like I could be a gigolo.
That's the first word I thought of. It's a gigolo.
Yeah.
I could be just like Deuce Bigelow, male gigolo. All the companionship in the world. No sex. All the companionship in the world. Right? So he was doing this thing, whatever. So I forgot. It was a mutual friend that he had that kind of like introduced him to Jess. And she was like in a very like dark place already. Right? She was in a dark place. I guess like she had, you know, told him one day like she wanted to hurt herself and she was going to take her own life and all of these different things, and he kind of like talked her off of the proverbial edge, right? Like, no, like you have children, you have things worth, you know, living for, and like all of these things. Like he really like helped her through that dark time. And so they're hanging out and everything like that. Somehow or another they started dating.
Okay.
Now we had not met the woman until obviously they had started dating, which I'm going to put a caveat on that. I believe in community dating. And what I mean by that is not like polyamory or nothing like that. Okay. But like, you know, back in the day, right, when your little sister or your brother, anybody, like, we had to vet that person that you're talking to.
Oh, 1,000%.
Right? It used to be where it's like, oh, I like this person. Let's go on a double date. Like, even before I started like dating my wife, I'm like, yo, sis, I want you to check. I want you to meet this woman, you know, that I'm talking to, that I kind of like. I need your like estimation of her, right? Like, cause you know, when you got the feelings, you know what I mean?
My boyfriend, yeah.
You know what I mean? When you have those feelings, right? Like, yo, it's a cocktail. Yeah. It's a drug. It's literally a cocktail of drugs in your brain. Your brain is releasing endorphins, oxycontin.
You're high off that.
You're high off that shit. So you're like, oh my god, they're great.
Things you won't see that the others will see.
Right.
Like, that's what I did that with my boyfriend. We did that, and then I was like, you have to meet the most important person in my life is my brother, and you know we're gonna go on a double date, and that's what we did that with my sister-in-law too. But Jeffrey was afraid to tell us that this woman was still married.
Yeah.
She was separated, but she was still married.
That's a whole, we're going to get to that.
Yeah, no, but that's what I'm saying. Like, fast forward a little bit to that's why he kind of didn't like he was still dating, okay, whatever.
It in there,
you know,
slowly
was like, you know, I'm afraid, you know, I want you to be my sister and my brother, but, and I'm like, well, what's the but? And when he told me, I'm like, oh, I said, that's a little bit of an issue, bro, because she didn't close one chapter of her life, and she's trying to open up another chapter, and that's kind of like a conflict.
Right.
So it was an issue there.
But I still think it's important to say this, that we need to get back to that community dating, because now you notice like nowadays it's like people want, oh, I want to let me like vet this person and see if I want to even have a relationship with them long term, and I like them or I love them or I move in with them, and then it's like, oh, now I want you to meet my friends and family.
Yeah.
No, because by then, now like you're really going to start seeing the kind of person they are, whereas some of those red flags could have been caught.
And you're not going to hear anybody else's opinion because you're already set.
Right.
So,
like it should be that way of like, hey, I like this person, or I met this person, I'm talking to them. I want you to vet them first before I even take it to the next step, before I even start to see if there's something there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that way you're not super attached, like you said.
Yeah.
You know, and so anyway, he meets the girl. Like they were just friends. Now they're dating and everything like that. We meet her, and at first it was like, okay, she's kind of like, she's cool, whatever, but something was off about her.
Okay.
Like upon first meeting her, I'm like, something is like, I felt it in my gut. Something's off with this woman.
Right.
And I had a conversation with him at that point. And I said, is this really your girlfriend? Like y'all together? He's like, yeah, she's a good girl. She's real sweet. You know, she's there for me. She's real supportive. All these things. And I said, nah, bro, like something is off about her.
What were some of the things that were standing out to you?
It's going to sound kind of maybe crazy.
No, go.
But like, I believe that as human beings, we're all connected.
Yeah.
And I believe that when you meet, you can pick up on people's energy.
The
frequency.
Yeah.
There is science behind this. We are all emitting frequency. This is what people say when they say, oh, the vibe is off, or I don't like their vibe. It's because we're all emitting a frequency. Our thoughts have frequencies. Yeah. This is not my opinion. This is science. This can be proven. Your heart, your brain, your organs, they're all emitting a different frequency, right? So when I met this woman, her vibe was off.
Yeah.
Her vibe was her vibe was off from the beginning, and I told him, bro, she's off. There's something off about her. I can't put my finger on it right now, but something is off about her, and I don't like.
You don't like the vibe.
I don't like the vibe.
Yeah.
Oh, you just gotta get to know her. I don't want to get to know her.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I don't want to get to know her.
Yeah. Give it time.
You know, give it time. Right. He used to say that, like, give it time. You don't even know her. I don't have to know you to know something's off about you.
Yeah. No, you know, 1,000%.
So, and not even just the vibe. It's like, yo, like we was raised in the hood.
Yeah.
Okay. We struggled all our life. We was, you know, drugs, doing other illegal activity, getting into certain situations. Game.
Yeah.
You're running game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I may not be able to articulate things very well, and I can use big words,
but
and
you
I
know
can be
the score of the
intelligent.
game.
But I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not stupid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I done been around the block a few times and back.
Yep.
You're not gonna play me.
Yeah.
So I was like, something's off about her, and he was already in the feeling. Oh no, but she's a good girl. You got to get to know her. I want you to talk to her.
She's just nervous right now because she wants you to get to like her, and I'm like, nah, you're trying way too hard.
Gotcha.
Like we can tell.
Right.
Yeah, you can tell.
She came off as like a how they call it, a pick me.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know. So I was like, all right, bro, you really want me to get to know her? Like, I'll talk to her. I'll try. I'll try. He was like, oh, I did it for Damaris, my wife. I did for Damaris and her boyfriend. And I'm like, I'll try. That's all I can do.
Yeah. Because he's like, this is why I don't bring.
Promise you.
Right. This is why I don't bring them around, because he's like, especially me, because he's like, you're the tough one. I'm like, yeah, because we see right through that bullshit. So we know. We're like, hold up, I'm a woman, so I know. Yeah. I mean, he's a man. He's gonna know. He's gonna like, You know what I mean? You're gonna pick up on that.
You
so
pick
I'm just
up on
like,
shit.
Yeah, you pick up on. I'm like, okay.
So,
let's see how long we'll take it.
So we start having conversations with her, right? So she gets my phone number. We're talking, and she's one of those people like real weird, like putting like like putting like very like intimate things on Facebook. Like I'm all for like transparency, and like if you're a content creator or you're somebody who's like in like the social media sphere, like in the public eye, I'm all for transparency and authenticity.
Yeah.
But there's also there has to be a line.
There has to
Right.
be.
There has to be a line. I'm not going to be like, I took a shit today.
Yeah.
And, oh, me and my wife did this today. And like, oh, me and my wife had an argument and now I hate her. Like, no, like.
Not everything's meant for social media.
Not everything has to be publicized. Now, if there's like a broader message and you want to use maybe a piece of your story to like kind of hammer down that message, I can understand that. But she was the kind of person just
She put it all out there.
A whole lot of weird stuff that's like, you know, that we don't need to know about, like on a daily basis, right? So one day she posted some mental health things that were concerning to me on Facebook, saying like she was very depressed and that, you know, she, you know, sometimes she wants to hurt herself, and she's putting this on social media. Now, I'm not one to ever look at somebody and be like, you're not going to do that.
Yeah.
Or you're just reaching out for attention.
But you know what? My mentality is, even if it is for attention, it's what's the problem with giving that person attention? There's something needs to be
like
addressed.
certain attention. Like, you know, some people give you that backlash, like, oh, you're just writing that shit because you want attention. Like that. I don't mean, like, oh no, I know you need that support, so attention.
Right.
So I'm gonna give you that.
Right. Because there are people that, you know, that use certain language because they need attention, but because they don't have the right language to say, well, I need support, or I need encouragement.
Right.
Or they feel like somebody won't give it to them if they ask that way, so they go a little bit more extreme.
Or even if it's in a toxic way where it's just like, we all can see that this person's doing this for attention and she's playing games, but she clearly needs help.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is why she's doing that.
Right.
But you also are like, you need to stay away from her because she got problems.
Right.
She needs help. She's doing that for attention. So it's like this, like,
it's a balancing act.
It's a balancing act. Yeah.
Right. So I see this, I'm like, all right. In my, like, me as a person, I'm like, man, like I said, anybody, there's been plenty of people, strangers, that reach out to me with their mental health stuff. And, you know, Stephanie has told me, yo, sometimes you have to back up because you take, like, I absorb it. I absorb that. I'm like, I want to help everybody.
That's your energy. You know,
that's just me. I want to help everybody. And so I'm like, man, I'm trying to like find that balance, right, of not being too much in people's business and trying to help everybody, but also not feeling like I'm neglecting people when they're calling out for help. So I see this post. I start talking to her. I write her on Facebook because I didn't have her number or anything like that. I say, hey, if you need to talk, I'm here. Just that's it. Yeah, sure. Okay. She's like, she messages me like, yeah, I'm going through it. You know, I just need someone to talk to. And I was like, okay, here's my phone number. Call me whenever, like, you know, whatever. Cool. So she immediately calls me. We're talking, and she like, I mean, it just goes in about all of these like psychological issues. I mean, we're talking about sexual assault, this, that, like a lot of like things that I was like, whoa, like I had to take a step back, and I said, look, I want to be a support system for you, and I want to be there to encourage you and help you. What I can do for you is, I know a great therapist. I know I have a whole network that I've been building over the last 2 years of therapists, because I know with COVID, like a lot of them got really backed up. Yeah. So because of the work that I was doing on YouTube, on my podcast and everything like that, I started building, like, literally I would get all these different therapists' numbers, what insurances they take. Like, I was collecting this at this point, because when people would come to me with issues that I felt I wasn't equipped to deal with, I would refer them to a therapist.
Got you.
So I was like,
that's
hey,
cool.
This is out of what I'm not a therapist.
This is not my scope.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't claim to be. I don't know everything. I don't have all the answers. I can tell you that this is what worked for me when I felt like what you're feeling. You need a therapist. I can't help you with this. I am not equipped to deal with this. You know? And so she's like, yeah, maybe I'll try. So we have all these conversations, and I'm picking up on, I read a lot about myself going into therapy, and a lot of the research that I do on, like, I read like straight up medical, like, research reports and stuff about psychology. I'm a nerd about it. Yeah. And a lot of things she was saying were like just the hairs on the back of my neck. I'm like, yo, like, you have issues. Yeah. Like, and I don't mean it like to be mean, but like, you have issues. And I told her, I said, look, you have a lot of trauma. You have a lot of issues going on. You know, all these things you're telling me, I don't want to be like too much like her business, but you know, she told me a lot of things, and I was like, look, I think you and Jeffrey take a step away from each other. Okay. Just even if it's for a little bit, because Jeffrey has things that he needs to deal with too. And you clearly have a lot of things that you have to work through. And I don't think it's healthy for either of you to be in a relationship with everything that you just told me. And you just told me that you're still married. That was the first I had heard about it.
Oh, that's the first time you found out.
That was the first time I heard about it. I didn't know that she knew about it. I never knew about that until that conversation. And this was like a few months into their relationship at this point.
Got you. Okay.
And I was like, whoa, you're married. Oh, but we're going through I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, because if me as a man and I'm married to my wife and we're going through a separation and I find out that you got another man in my house that I'm paying for, I don't even know. I'm gonna be completely. I'm not advocating for violence or anything like that.
But you don't know.
I don't even know what I would do in that situation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? 100%. Of like, yeah, okay, we're separating, but we're not separated yet, or we're not divorced yet.
Right.
Like legally, we're still like together. So you better if you want to be with somebody else, that's fine. You do that shit outside of the house that I pay for.
Yeah.
Right.
But for you to have somebody in my house that I'm paying for, like waiting to go through a divorce and all that, you don't know where that person's mind is.
Sure.
Right.
And I told her, I said, no. Definitely leave my brother alone at this point. You need to focus on your mental health, your children, because she has 4 children.
Wow.
So I said, you need to worry about that. You're not working. You're doing all of these things. Like your priorities are all fucked up.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that with love. Like seriously, I'm saying that out of love for you, that what I think you're doing is completely asinine.
Yeah.
You're worried about my brother. My brother's dick's not gold.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like if it's meant to be, then y'all be able to come back to each other. It's not an issue for y'all to take some time away from each other, and you need to settle. You need to get your house in order. You got 4 kids that are running wild, doing whatever. You know what I'm saying? That you're not even financially taken care of. You got issues with your husband. Your husband's paying for your house and doing all of this. You got my brother going up in there. I don't know when that man could walk in at any time because it's his house. How is that gonna be?
Yeah.
You know, I said here's a therapist. Do this. This is what I think will help you. I can't help you because this is a lot. Whoa, that's way too much for me. I can't help you. All I can say is leave each other alone.
Well, even to know, like, in the back of your mind, you're probably like,
I was
what
worried.
The fuck, dog?
Yeah, we're worried about our brother.
I didn't know this was going on like that.
Right.
Coming up next on the JMC Podcast.
When we look at women off the rip, we're already going to sympathize with women over men.
Sure.
He came over, whatever. So he came over and we were talking. We went him on. I could just tell he just looks defeated.
I'm trying to conceptualize everything. Then everything happens with my mom. I got to spring into action, and like, it's like it was so much.